Okay.
This is a visitor announcement. We hope you've enjoyed your visit today.
Okay.
Lovely. Yeah, are we on now?
Yep, good to go.
Fabulous. Thank you. I can hear a little bit of background, Diane.
We'll be open again tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Ah, I think it's Catherine. Is it you, Catherine? Is your
Yeah, sorry, I think we're getting announcements that might happen a couple of times actually because of the time. We're getting announcements from the gallery. So yeah, apologies if that happens in the middle of it.
Yeah, it's like nighttime at the museum or whatever that film is.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to everybody who, whether you're joining us live or watching this as a recording. My name's Susan, and I'm so happy to welcome Catherine from the National Gallery, who's going to talk to us a little bit about Take One Picture. Just as a quick kind of introduction, when I was a young teacher, my head sent me on a lovely 3-day course, and this was back in, I think it was, oh my goodness, it was about 2004, or no, it was before that. Must have been long before that, actually. A really long time ago. And we had a presentation from the guy that actually invented the Take One Picture thing, and he came and talked about what he'd done with his year 6 class looking at the Wilton diptych. And that was absolutely fantastic for me as a teacher, and how I really transformed actually how I thought about using art in my work and in the work of the school, as I was art coordinator at that time. And now I'm really glad to say that at Roehampton we continue to have a fantastic a relationship with the National Gallery, and send our art specialists there for a wonderful week's placement every year, and the same thing happens to them. They have a really wonderful kind of transformational experience, which is so satisfying for me, having kind of come through that route myself. So I'm going to hand over to Catherine, and she's going to tell us a little bit about the Take One Picture programme, and then we'll have a little chat afterwards. And if you've got any questions, please send them through into the chat, and we will be looking at those as we go through as well. But I hope you're going to really enjoy the session, and all be mad to do Take One Picture in the future. Okay, Catherine, tell us all about it.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And thank you for having me as well. It's really lovely to be here virtually. So yeah, my name's Catherine Heath, and I currently run Take One Picture at the National Gallery. As you've just heard, it's a very long-running programme. I did not invent it, but I am kind of the current custodian, as it were, of this programme. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. I'm going to share my screen in just a moment to share some slides, and then we're going to have a little bit of a chat about some of the themes that are within that programme. So hopefully you can all see this. If you can't, then do let me know.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Perfect, lovely. So Take One Picture, as you said, it's our countrywide programme for primary schools. So this is a programme that is free, and it's available for primary school teachers up and down the country. Really, it's about inspiring a lifelong love of art and learning for teachers and for children. And every year we take one picture from the National Gallery's collection. We focus on that one image to inspire cross-curricular projects in primary school classrooms. So I'm going to talk you through a little bit more about how that works in practice, the sorts of things that are included in those projects, and also show you some examples of children's artworks that have been done over the last couple of years to give you a bit more of a flavour of what that can look like. So this is an annual programme. So every year, this is a very brief overview of the cycle of the programme. So each cycle starts with a teacher training. I should say we're going to put a couple of links in the chat as well, because I'm going to be going through things quite quickly. We're going to put a link in the chat to the Take One Picture part of the National Gallery's website. So everything I'm saying now can be followed up like in more detail there. And we'll also pop a link to the free teacher trainings as well. So this year, we're running all of our teacher trainings online because our education centre is currently being refurbished, which we're very excited about. And we're running one teacher training per month. From now, we've already done a couple starting in October, but they're running once per month between now and April. So if you would like to come to a teacher training that goes into Take One Picture in a bit more detail, we'll put a link in the chat so you can attend one of those. So each cycle starts with one of those teacher trainings. After that training, hopefully you'll go away inspired and excited to take part and can run a project with your students that then responds to that year's focus painting. So the teacher training is about that year's particular focus painting, talking about the specifics of that image, but it's also more broadly about looking at using visual resources, using paintings in the classroom to inspire children to create their own work and to inspire them to investigate the themes that are within that painting all across the curriculum. So it's partly specific to every year, but also those broader skills really can be applied to any painting you like. And then at the end of every cycle, we then hold a really lovely exhibition at the National Gallery showing a selection of the projects that have been made in response to the painting. We also really encourage schools to put on their own local exhibitions and celebrations as well. So this could be an exhibition in a school hall, a celebration at a local library, a parents' evening, anywhere you like of kind of really celebrating that work. It's a really lovely part of the programme. I'm more than happy to share these slides as well after today, if that's helpful, so you can look back at them. As I said, a lot of this is on the website too, but this is just really a few of the aims and benefits, I guess, of why we do this programme. So it's about visual literacy. Really importantly, it's about children's leadership, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that in today's session. But really, it's about, rather than us telling the children what they should see or telling them what they should think about a painting, it's flipping that round, and it's really thinking of ways that we can introduce the painting in a way that inspires them to ask questions, them to look closer, and them to start their own investigation into the painting. Building cultural capital. It can be a lovely way to build the school community, involve members of the local community in projects as well. And of course, raising students' confidence, which, as I said, an exhibition or a celebration can be a really important part of that. You'll also find this information on our website too, but I wanted to highlight it here because we're really lucky that throughout 2019 to 2022, we're able to do a really big efficacy study on Take One Picture. So we worked with 12 schools across Northampton to look at the impact of taking part in Take One Picture, not just in children's art skills, but also in kind of broader skills across the curriculum. And some of those are highlighted here. So, for example, when children took part in Take One Picture, their technical art skills improved from 55% to 100%. The number of pupils using rich Tier 3 vocabulary. So we worked with the University of Northampton to really kind of come up with very robust criteria that we were looking for and things that we could really measure. Children's use of vocabulary were put into 3 tiers. So kind of everyday language, slightly more specialist language, and then the kind of higher level of technical language. And the number of children who were able to use that kind of higher level of technical language in response to a painting increased from 5% to 32%. And there's things in there as well about increased critical thinking, increased creativity, all of these sorts of broad skills that of course are really important within art, but equally, you know, absolutely crucial across the curriculum and beyond the curriculum too. So these are just a few examples I'm going to show you of the Take One Picture exhibition. So this is at the end of every cycle where we give schools the opportunity to submit whatever project or artwork has been created. And we put on what I think are rather wonderful looking exhibitions. It's one of my absolute favourite times of year. It's a real joy to celebrate the children's work in this way. These are all different themes that have taken place over the last few years. And this one here is the exhibition that just came down a few weeks ago. It's in responding to a painting called A Shipwreck in Stormy Seas. So as you can imagine, lots of boats, lots of waves, lighthouses, kind of all sorts of really kind of wonderful nautical themed projects. But what I really loved, particularly about working on this exhibition, is we also had groups of children involved in the exhibition design as well. So we're talking about lighting, colours, atmosphere. What you can see on the floor there, it's a shame that this isn't a video clip actually, is we had this projection coming from the ceiling of crashing waves on the floor. It was with a soundscape as well, so you could kind of hear the sounds of the sea and the kind of the crashing ocean. And that was an idea that came from a group of students, and they really kind of helped us to make that a reality within the exhibition space. So that's something that's been sort of developing over the last few years and is now a really integral part of the programme, of having children involved at every part of the cycle. These are some of the selection criteria that we look for when we're deciding projects to put in the exhibition, but equally they can be really, really important things to include to make sure that these projects are as kind of multi-layered as possible, that children have the opportunity for a really kind of rich learning experience. So being child-led, as I said, it's that idea of children leading their own investigation, cross-curricular, which a lot of the time naturally comes as a result of that child-led element. It's a great opportunity to learn a new artistic process or maybe use some new material that they haven't used before, and then also involve people, places in the local community. So what I'm going to do just really briefly is show you a couple of examples of projects that I feel have done some of these things really well. And then we can kind of go on, as I said, to kind of talk about some of the themes within this a little bit more. So this painting, as I said, this is the one that inspired this year's exhibition. It's A Shipwreck in Stormy Seas by Claude Joseph Vernet. Now, I don't know about you, but if I was looking at this painting, kind of, as a teacher or as someone who works in education, and I was thinking of, what I could make in response to this, I might think, oh, fantastic, I'm going to make ships out of lollipop sticks, for example, could be my response to this, or I'm going to make a lighthouse, or maybe I'd want to make something to do with the lightning. Those are the sorts of things that attract me. I would maybe have questions about, how do you make a ship? How does that work? Or maybe the people in the foreground, actually, I really find interesting about, what are they doing? What are they up to? I personally would have lots and lots of questions about this painting. But one question that I wouldn't have probably had, I don't know about you, is why didn't they check their sat-nav? So this question came from a school in London called Snaresbrook Primary School. And I just love the example of this project because they looked at the painting and first of all, they were thinking, it's really stupid. The captain of that ship, why have they gone out in such terrible weather? Like, that just seems like an awful idea. Why didn't they check the weather that morning? And then that got them thinking, well, could you check the weather? Was that possible? Did they have, phones or computers that they could check those things on when this painting was painted? And then that got them thinking, okay, if they can't check the weather, then why didn't they check their sat-nav or some other way? Maybe it's that they're lost. Maybe that's the reason that they've ended up in a storm. But again, they started having similar conversations. Well, could you do that when this painting was painted? It's a painting from the 1700s. So then they started to investigate, okay, what kind of technology did they have in the 1700s? Was it possible to check the weather? Was it possible to check the sat-nav? If you were a captain of the ship, how did you navigate the sea? And from those lines of questioning, we ended up with this project. So this project was called Navigating a Stormy Sea. And what they found through their research was that captains at this time would often have really fantastic knowledge of the night sky, knowledge of constellations, of stars and planets, and they could use their knowledge of the map of the night sky in order to navigate. And this was something that just absolutely fascinated the children. They did this absolutely fantastic research on it. And then this was their final result. It's a cyanotype print with kind of dyed fabric as well, that's thinking about kind of the crashing waves at the bottom, but is also showing some of their research and some of the imagery to go alongside it. So that's just one example of how really beautifully multi-layered project that's really naturally cross-curricular. You know, they had to think about technology, they had to think about history, they had to think about geography in order to make this project happen.
The gallery closes at 6 p.m.
Sorry, you might be able to hear a little bit of background noise there because I am currently in the gallery and it closes at 6 o'clock. So you might hear a couple of announcements, but hopefully that will stop now. Apologies for that. And then this is another example. So this is Orazio Gentileschi's Finding of Moses from the 1630s. So again, looking at this, I might think, okay, great, maybe Moses, I could maybe do an RE related project, or maybe we could weave baskets. I maybe might have questions around, you know, their beautiful dresses or the fabric, these sorts of things. But one thing, again, I wouldn't have ever thought of was, why aren't the women wearing any shoes? Not a question that would have come to my mind. But this class from a school in Northumberland absolutely wanted to know why the women weren't wearing any shoes. And then they noticed that if you look at their feet are dirty, but the whole sole of their foot isn't. There's an area kind of in the middle that's still clean. And they were wondering about, you know, why that is. You know, when you have footprints on the ground, bare feet, you quite often don't see the entire sole of the foot. And this got them thinking about the anatomy of feet. They ended up inviting a local podiatrist in to do this project with them. They made plaster casts of their own feet. They put their feet in orange paint and then kind of did footsteps across paper. And they were thinking, when they were squishing their toes into that orange paint, all about how the women in the painting might have felt to be squishing their toes into the silty soil that was alongside the river. And what was really nice about this project, you might think, oh, you know, what's the anatomy of feet got to do, you know, with this painting? But what was really fantastic is they were then sort of thinking about how artists of this time, in order to show the human body really realistically, they would have to have a fantastic knowledge of anatomy. So going back and, you know, zooming into the feet in a lot of detail and kind of wondering at how realistic they are. It's just another example. Again, you know, it's a project, you know, kind of about biology and about the human body, but it's come from questions, which has then really naturally led into that cross-curricular investigation. Now, I'm conscious of time, but I just wanted to quickly show you a couple more images as a way of showing you, I guess, some of the ways that we can introduce painting to children in a way that kind of stokes that imagination. There are many, many, many ways of doing this. And this is one of the things that we look at within the Take One Picture teacher training, is various different kind of tips and techniques of ways that you might be able to do this. But one of the ways that we do it, so when I say what's the next painting going to be, this is what we're currently focusing on for the current set of teacher trainings that run until April, is sometimes we introduce a painting by details. So rather than showing the entire painting all at once, we might just show one snippet of it and get children to really kind of look at it, analyse that image, think about what can they see in the painting, what can they see in that particular detail of it, and what within that detail then gives them clues as to maybe what the rest of the painting might look like, and start to build up an image of, you know, what this clip might be in context. Now, as I said, I won't go through this in a lot of detail now, but we would maybe introduce detail by detail, or sometimes I've seen teachers get a poster of the painting, they cover it in post-it notes, and then maybe just take off one post-it note at a time to reveal little parts of the image. And in doing so, it can really get you to think, okay, well, what does the rest of the painting look like? How do these images, if we imagine them as almost puzzle pieces, you know, how do they fit together? And then showing them all together, again, you can kind of start to think about, how does this puzzle fit? And I did this activity with a school in Wigan a few months ago now. And what was really lovely is we zoomed into the painting, we looked at these sort of little crops and details, we imagined what the whole painting might have been. I'll show you it now. But then what was great is then we then took a step further. So the children were saying, well, then what happens if we zoom out more? You know, this is a painting that you almost want to say, well, what's happening above, or what's happening below, or on either side? And we had one child draw this absolutely fantastic drawing called The Pie Shop. So they imagined that this painting, what you're seeing, is actually part of a pie shop. And the shutter on the left-hand side would continue to make a serving hatch. So we've got this very happy little chap in his hat, you know, making his pies and then serving them out of the serving hatch. We've got this fantastic drawing on the right-hand side. They imagine that if you went through that door, you would get to a seating area where you can enjoy your pie. I love it that pie time or pie o'clock is 20 to 1. They've imagined that that architecture continues up into kind of a clock tower type building. And all of this originally came from, if you look at the lady with the child, she's holding something. And the children of this class started to have a conversation around what is she holding? And they were thinking, you know what, it looks like a pie. And then when we showed them the whole image, they realised that there isn't one closed door in this image. The right-hand side, the door is open. The left-hand side, they're thinking, well, you know, what could that be? But it's definitely something that's open. And that then made them really think about, you know, if you were somebody in this painting, where could you travel to? Where could you go? What's happening around the outside? And I like using this particular image as an example, just because it really, I think, shows the point that if I had started this workshop with these children, telling them all the art historical information about this painting, then the pie shop would have never existed. They would have never had room for kind of that imagination if I'd have told them, you know, all the facts and figures about the painting before we started. But actually giving them that bit of room, getting them to look at the painting in detail, imagine what might be beyond the frame, it meant that the pie shop kind of came into reality. And as I said, yeah, it's a really beautiful drawing and just an example of what children's imaginations can do if you just give them that little bit of freedom. So I think that is, I guess, my introduction to, you know, what Take One Picture is and what it can do. I do have the name of the painting here if anyone is interested, The Courtyard in the House of Delft. But at the moment, I will go back to the wonderful pie shop image and maybe we can chat a little bit more about that.
Catherine, that's just so fascinating, isn't it? I absolutely love that. And it also reminds me of when I did the Take One Picture, and I'll tell you how long ago it was, because it was Degas beach scene. So a very long time ago, and the whole school did something, all the classes did something different from looking at that one painting. And what our year 4 class basically saw 2 little triangles in the sea, and they were convinced that those were sharks. So all their artwork was around sharks devouring Edwardian people, actually. But it was, again, you know, that whole thing came from the children's imagination, and again
leading
them into learning about history, about, you know, the beach scene itself. I don't know if anyone who's watching is familiar with it, but it's actually quite a dull picture. It's kind of muted. It's not how you think, oh, a beach scene. It's really not like that. And but it's just so, there's so much to see that you don't normally wouldn't at first glance really look at, and it's only by kind of looking carefully and looking deeply and questioning and thinking, actually, what if, you know, I think that's just a great example. Lovely examples that you've given as well around the same sort of idea about children's imaginations and setting those free, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I love about the pie shop example is there is nothing in there that contradicts, you know, what's in the image at all. It's all from absolutely such close looking the more you look at it, the detail of, the window frame that's then been extended, or, the oval perhaps window or other kind of opening that's then been extended upwards, the more you look at it, the more you realise actually the amount of really close looking that's been done to then create that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then you kind of start building your own story, don't you? And as an adult, sort of thinking about ladies on her way to the loo or something like that, going through. It's just kind of just great. I want to just ask you a little bit about that kind of cross-curricular element. I think the curriculum at the moment in primary schools is a bit kind of closed down and quite narrow, really. Topic work is, kind of where you might fit something like this in. But I wonder how you what you're finding as feedback from schools that have joined in the Take One Picture recently, about how they find time to do their project and do it well. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so it's a real mixture, I think, in terms of practicalities, and we keep that as open as possible. So you don't have to do this at a particular time of year or for a particular amount of time. You could do it with one class or the whole school. We keep all those practicalities kind of really open so that schools can work on it in a way that works for them and fits into their timetable. So we have some schools that put it within an arts week, for example, and they just focus on this one painting for the entire week. We have other schools that might do like a session per week, like over a term or over a half term, for example. We have others who it's kind of really embedded within their curriculum. So they have one half term per year where they just really, really focus on the painting, and they use that for quite a lot of their teaching actually within that whole half term. So it really, really depends. And it depends as well. We have some academy trusts, for example, who, it's embedded within the curriculum of all the schools. So all of the schools do it in kind of quite a similar way. Whereas we have others where, that structure is much looser. So it's kind of up to, individual teachers know exactly how they would like the programme to fit.
Yeah.
I think in terms of the cross-curricular element, I know that sometimes that can be, I guess, the tricky part to plan, because it's almost quite tempting to think, okay, we're going to look at this painting, and the cross-curricular link we're going to make is history, for example, and we want to almost pre-decide, what that cross-curricular link is going to be, which is tempting. But I hope that through, a couple of the projects that we've talked through, and your fantastic example of the sharks as well, kind of shows that if you sort of start with the painting and with what the children want to know and what they want to investigate, those cross-curricular links kind of come out really naturally. And sometimes they're not necessarily what you would have expected, but I would say kind of all the more richer for it.
Absolutely. And I think as a teacher, it's so refreshing to work in that way, isn't it? Where you're kind of led by the children's interests, actually, which is what we advocate, of course, in art and design as a subject, but you don't always get that chance to do it so thoroughly, do you? I know we're coming up to sort of close to time, and I wanted to just finish off by asking you a little bit about where you position the Take One Picture exhibition, because I know it used to be like down in the depths, and I think I was very impressed at how it's kind of given central stage, if you like, in the gallery. Do you want to say a little bit about how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, each year it can be in different places within the gallery. For the last few years, it's been in a room called the Sunny Room, which, we were kind of really lucky to have, because you said it had that kind of prominent position right in the middle of the gallery, and it's quite a large space as well. So for the last few years, it's been fantastic to be able to use that space. For next year, we're looking at something a little bit different. It's not necessarily always in the exact same space each year, but it's certainly something, as you said, that has kind of really grown and developed over time. And as I mentioned before as well, something that we've been really kind of bringing in more and more over the last couple of years is having children involved actually in designing that exhibition as well. So not just in producing the artworks, but then also thinking about that artwork in a display context. So for Shipwreck in Stormy Seas, as I said, we had workshops with children in the gallery when they were thinking about, you know, what kind of atmosphere do they want to create in the exhibition? You know, how are they going to do that through things like sound or lighting or colour? You know, what did they want the visitor experience to be like? We had different conversations about, you know, different access needs for visitors as well, and, you know, how they can be integrated into the space. You know, lots of really, really interesting conversation around design. And there were lots of elements of that exhibition that definitely either wouldn't have existed or wouldn't have existed in the way that they did if we hadn't worked really closely with children within that process. And it's something we're hoping to do, you know, more and more as the years progress. I think it's a really important part of the programme. And now with our aim is that every part of the programme is informed by the children and teachers who take part. So this particular painting that you're looking at, the courtyard painting, was actually chosen by groups of children and teachers across the country as well. This was a painting that really chimed with them. It was a painting that children had lots and lots of questions about. There's lots of intrigue, both in terms of the architecture, but the people. They had lots of questions about, you know, who are they and what are they doing and where are they going to go to next? So yeah, it really is something that we're, as I said, bringing in more and more to make sure the programme is as shaped and informed by, you know, teachers and students as possible.
I just absolutely love that. And I just think that children not only just learn to make stuff, but they're also kind of following on that process. So there's a kind of sense of purposefulness around it too, isn't there? Once you kind of get into that whole curation and what's it going to look like, and the children being part of that, I think is so essential. You sort of think about when you've got your class and all your children's artwork, you know, the teacher's the one that sticks up on the wall, but actually why don't we let the children to curate some of those displays too, and really kind of put them in the driving seat, I think is superb.
Yeah, and I think it's a fantastic opportunity for them to be kind of practicing their oracy skills, practicing their presentation skills as well. So at the gallery, we have a private view where some of the children who have made the artwork come and, you know, talk to visitors, talk to members of the public about what they made and why, and, you know, what they thought about the painting. And I've seen that's done at a lot of schools as well, where schools will have, you know, a private view for their exhibition, and they'll have groups of children, you know, explaining their project and, you know, explaining their artwork. And that can be really fantastic as well, both in terms of, as I said, the oracy skills, presentation skills, but also giving children that opportunity to feel real pride in what they've created as well, which is, yeah, a part that I really, really love. There's nothing better than hearing about an artwork from the artists themselves.
Absolutely. And, you know, it is actually part of an artist's role to do that. You know, they give talks and, you know, don't they? So why should children be doing the same things that they feel like they're the artist?
Yeah, and you'd be surprised about how much confidence, you know, they can really grow. So before those private views take place, we do workshops at the gallery within the day, you know, for children to practice what they would like to say, to kind of get their confidence up. And quite often, you know, the first sort of, you know, 20 minutes, half an hour, they're, you know, a little bit shy, not really sure what to say. You know, it's a big gallery building, which of course can be, you know, a bit intimidating as well. But then by the end of the evening, you know, they're absolutely going for it. They're so excited, you know, they, you know, don't run out of things to say. So I really enjoy seeing that kind of confidence grow over the day as well. And I'm sure it's the same within schools as well. That, you know, at the moment, public speaking can be something that's a bit scary. You know, I think adults as well, you know, we all probably feel a bit nervous before we do any kind of, you know, speaking to groups of people. But from what I've seen, they, you know, manage to, you know, gain that confidence really, really quickly.
Well, Catherine, I want to thank you so much. I know we've gone over slightly over our half an hour, but I think it's been worth every second of that. I'd really love to thank you so much for your time this evening and sharing this with us. And you said there are some links for teachers, how they can get involved and be part of Take One Picture. I think there's some things going in the chat, are there?
Yes, I think Diane was going to pop a couple of links in the chat. So one is to the Take One Picture website, which has got more information, more detail about everything that I've said. Although there isn't a Take One Picture exhibition up physically in the gallery at the moment, if you go on that website, there's a tab where you can explore previous exhibitions. So you can look at photographs of them, you can look at children's artworks. We've also got videos of children talking about each painting as well. So feel free to delve into, all the information that's on there. But then also on that website, you can book onto one of those free teacher trainings as well. So if you'd like to focus on that courtyard painting, learn a bit more about it. As I said, I've managed to give you a couple of little tips within the time that we've had today, but they're much more extensive online trainings that any primary school teachers across the country are more than welcome to come to.
Lovely. I can also put the links on because I can't see anything actually in the chat, but never mind. I will put the links on Facebook on the Facebook site. So that will be
fantastic. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, and I hope everybody has enjoyed this. Please do get in touch if you've got any questions. I'm sure Catherine will also be looking forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.